I've got to admit, when I first looked at GA4, it wasn't love at first sight. Hate is probably too strong a word, but I kind of skedaddled back out of there as quick as I could. Now, obviously, since then, I've learned to love is also probably too strong a word, but like it is a very powerful tool, and I'm learning to appreciate it now, and I'm learning more about it all the time because it is such a huge thing. But hopefully I'm going to persuade you to start using it as well, and here are a few good reasons. See how people actually find your website. Now, why is that useful? Well, you could be trying all sorts of different digital marketing strategies. You could be doing SEO, you could be doing Google Ads, you might be dabbling in email marketing or social media. But you've got to know how each of those is working for you, and GA4 can help you discover that. It can tell you whether your people are arriving from organic search or your Google Ads or clicking a post in your social media profiles. And once you know that information, you can start making some decisions about where you're going to focus your time and your effort and, of course, your money, because we've all only got certain sort of limits on our digital marketing budgets. It's also really important to understand how your actual content on your website is performing. Now, the whole point of the content on your site is to attract visitors, give them the information they're looking for so that they think you're the best thing since sliced bread and hopefully buy your services or your products. GA4 can tell you what are your top performing pages, the pages that perhaps aren't doing quite so well, perhaps pages that used to do well a year ago, but traffic's declined and they're in the doldrums now. Or perhaps even traffic channels would have attract high traffic but low conversions. So once you've got that kind of information, all of a sudden you've got a to-do list. You can make your top content even better so it attracts even more traffic. You can look at the low performing content and make some decisions about whether to improve it or designate it to the trash can. And for pages that perhaps were doing well but aren't now, can you freshen them up? Can you make them a little bit more relevant again? So that's really useful. What do visitors do after they land on your website? That's a really interesting one, and you might be asking yourself, why should you even care? But it kind of matters to know what people are most interested in, the kind of content they're interested in finding after they arrive on your site. So, for example, if they land on your homepage, where do they go next? What's the second page they look at, and the third page and the fourth? Google Analytics can tell you that. It can tell you what sequence of pages people look at and what action they take. And that's useful to know because once you know what the most content is, and that might surprise you, it could be pages that you didn't give too much thought to. Once you know what they're looking for, you can go off and optimize those pages. You can make sure that people can find them really easily on your website. Maybe you can just improve your call to action so that people take the conversion action that you want them to take. Conversions. It's the main measure of how well your website is doing its job. Now you can get really funky with conversions and get really complicated, but at the very least you need to be tracking obviously how many people are on your site and what actions they're taking that could be meaningful to your business. So are they signing up for your newsletter? Are they clicking phone numbers or email addresses? Are they submitting contact forms? So you've got to know what is converting and what is driving those conversions. And one of the most important reasons, it's free. And you can't really say that about too many SEO tools these days, can you? It's not perfect by any means. There are plenty of valid criticisms about the way GA4 sometimes isn't always 100% accurate in the way it attributes traffic and conversions and that kind of thing. But if we can learn to just appreciate it for what it does best, we can really make good use of it. And that is tracking trends in user behaviour and traffic. So that's enough of that for now. Let's actually just dive in and look at a few reports. First of all, a quick shout out to one of our customers, Trentwood Fencing, bless them. They gave us permission to take screenshots of their GA4 account to show you this evening. They're based in Oxfordshire, so they're not worried about anyone in the room stealing their data. So the traffic acquisition report, this is all about where your traffic is coming from. So as you can see on the left here, you have all the different channels that traffic is coming to your website. And over to the other side, you've got a row of lots of different columns, obviously showing sessions or visits in more common language, information about engagement and engagement rate. That's worth mentioning actually just for a moment, because a lot of people don't realise that it's worth looking at that. If people are spending a lot of time on your website, if they are looking at lots of pages, or if they take a conversion action, that's sending signals to Google that you've got really interesting, useful content. So that could be doing your website some good if you've got good engagement rates. Over to the other side, you've got more information, and you'll see one column there with the heading Key Events, or as us mere mortals call it, conversions. Now, those conversions, looking at it just like that, just show you a grand total of how many conversions you got for each of these different traffic channels. But you can break it down a little bit more than that to get a little bit more useful information. If you click the little arrow underneath the key events heading, you can see all the different types of conversion that you might have set up. And you can filter that conversion column by any of those different conversion types to get a more granular view of what's working for each of your different marketing channels. I'm going to stick with this report for just a few moments longer because I just want to zoom in and show you something else. Now, if you're looking at the conversion rate there between comparing organic search and paid search, you're immediately going to get the impression that your organic traffic isn't converting at quite such a nice rate as your paid search. And that's going to possibly lead you to make some decisions about whether you spend your budget on SEO or throw more money at your Google Ads. But we've got to take a moment to pause there, really, and look a little bit deeper at this, because I happen to know that this website has a lot of really popular articles, and people are coming to the website just for the information or an answer to a question, and they disappear again. That traffic is never going to convert. We don't expect people looking for informational content to convert. So we're not really comparing apples with apples, are we? Because our paid campaigns are definitely only targeting people that are looking for a service. They've got a much higher chance of converting. So what we really want to do is level the playing field a little bit. We want to take out all that traffic that is only interested in the informational content. So let's do that. Let's build a filter. Let's make it so that the only pages included in this data are landing pages where the URL does not contain the word news. Let's see what happens when we apply that filter. All of a sudden, you're seeing a very different story. And you can see that traffic from organic search is converting at twice the rate of paid search when you take out all the traffic that we would never expect to convert in the first place. So that's just a good example of how you can't always take the initial report at face value. Sometimes you've got to use your own knowledge of your business and the people that come to your website to just dive a little bit deeper. And simple filters like that make it quite easy to do that. You can also apply a comparison for the date range that you're looking at, because everything we've seen so far is really only looking at a fixed period of time. If you're looking to see how your traffic channels or your content is performing over a period, you can set up a comparison. In this example, I've just chosen the most recent 90 days and comparing it to the preceding 90 days. And when you apply that comparison date range, you'll see something like this. Now, please, I want to ask you to ignore everything on there. There's a lot of noise there, and I've done the hard work for you. I've picked out just a couple of observations, so ignore anything that isn't in a little red box. So let's take paid search as one of the useful insights here. You can see that between August and October, their traffic increased by 52.5% over May to July. Okay, so that immediately prompts me to ask some questions. What were we doing in the most recent 90 days in our paid ad campaigns that we weren't doing between May and July? Were we simply spending more money? Did we introduce a new type of ad campaign that's working really well? Google Analytics isn't always going to give you the answers, but it gives you the questions that you need to go out and investigate. Another observation here, let's look at organic social for a moment. So this has gone in the other direction. Between May and July, they had 69% more traffic from their social media efforts than they had between August and October. Again, this is prompting some questions to ask ourselves. What the heck was Trentwood Fencing doing between May and July that they weren't doing between August and October? And can they please get back to doing it? Because as you can see over there, that earlier period of activity was driving some conversions. So let's move on to how your content is actually performing. This is the landing page report. And for those that don't know, a landing page is simply a phrase for the page people first arrive at on your website. Very similar to the acquisition report. On the left-hand side, you have a list of your landing pages that are driving traffic. Google only shows 10 initially, but you can see over in the box on the right, it does actually show that you can expand this list, and there are 148 pages driving traffic to the website over this time frame. I'm quite happy about that because it's not a huge website, but to know that 148 pages are driving traffic, it tells me that every page, a lot of pages on that site, are doing their job. They're working hard. They're attracting traffic. Very similar to the acquisition report, you've got a bunch of columns over to the right. You've got views there, so the number of page views for each of those pages. Again, information about engagement and key event conversion data as well. And again, as with most GA4 reports, if you've got a column there for key events, you can filter that by the type of by the type of conversion. We spoke earlier about it being useful to know what people do after they land on your website. The Path Exploration report can tell you exactly that. So this is something like what you might first see when you go onto the Path Exploration report. You can choose any page at all on your website, doesn't matter which one, whichever one you're curious about. You can choose that as your starting point, and you can find out what people did next. So in this example, you can see that people went from the home page, they went to the gallery. And at first that surprised me a little bit, I suppose. But then I thought, well, if you're looking to employ someone to do your fencing, you kind of want to know the quality of the work they do. So that kind of made sense after that. 140 people go from the home page to the contact us page, 118 to fencing, and so on. You can keep clicking that more button to see more if you're interested. And you can click on any of these different pages to expand the path through that page. I was curious to see what happens on the contact page. So let's see what happens next. So you can see now that from the Contact Us page, some visitors went back to the home page, some went to the fencing page, 18 went to the, they saw the thank you page. Now that means they've submitted an inquiry form after going to the Contact Us page, and they've got the standard thank you for getting in touch page after that. So immediately I'm seeing a nice little conversion funnel there from the home page straight to the Contact Us page, submit an inquiry, bam. That's quite good. I'm quite pleased with that. I presume after submitting an inquiry form, that's it, their job done. That's their primary purpose of visiting the website done. So I guess they leave the site now, don't they? Well, let's see what happens if we carry on looking what happens after they see the thank you page. Some go back to the home page and a couple of other pages, but some of those visitors carry on engaging with the content on the website, and they look at not one, not two, but 3 news articles. So that makes me pretty happy as well. That's telling me that even after fulfilling the primary purpose of going onto the website, the content is still interesting enough and useful enough to keep them on the website, boosting those engagement rates. So one idea that I got from this is make the thank you page a little bit more informative. Say, encourage people to hang around, not leave the website, and look at other popular content on the site. That's all the time I've got for showing you actual reports on the website. So I'm just going to give you a few tips to get yourself started if you're not already using GA4. GA4 does have a setup assistant that can help you through the process of getting your account up and running. It's not 100% intuitive, but hopefully if you've only got quite basic configuration needs, you shouldn't need too much more help. Identify what is most important to you. GA4 can be pretty overwhelming. So when you're just starting out, I suggest you just focus on 3 things. Where your traffic is coming from, what your visitors are actually doing on the website, and how your content is performing. As I said, it's a pretty powerful tool, and once you get beyond the basics, you can do all kinds of lovely, interesting stuff with reports and templates and building your own and dashboards and all kinds of things. But when you're just starting out, GA4's built-in reports and templates are probably more than adequate for what you need initially. So stick with those, get familiar with them, get happy using them, and see what information you can get. You saw how easy it was for me to apply a news filter to one of the previous reports to give me a really granular insight into some of that data. Try that yourself. Play around with filters and comparisons. You'll be quite surprised at how useful the information is. Conversion tracking, as I said, can get really complex and difficult to set up, but right out of the box, Google does track some things automatically for you. Things like page views, which you might not even really consider a conversion event, to be honest, but things like page views, scrolling to the bottom of a page, interactions with forms and file downloads. So those basic things might be just enough to get you started. And I will just leave you with a few last tips. You might not like it, you might think it's not for you, but hold your nose and dive in, play around with it, and I think it's quite addictive, and you never know, you might become as addicted as I am to it. Having said that, don't make any rash moves. Learn to read the data, learn to interpret it before you go off and apply any major changes to your website, because it's not so easy to reverse any negative impact after you've applied it. And once you've applied some changes from any insights that you've got from GA4, check back to make sure that whether you've had a negative or a positive impact. And it's just rinse and repeat after that. Keep checking, keep analysing, keep interpreting, and keep improving. Thank you very much.
Cool. So we've got a little bit of time. Has anybody got any questions for Mandy? Fire them through to the back.
When you were tracking where stuff was coming from, is that something that's built into Google, or is that like UTM tracking?
Sorry, say again?
So you had, for example, you put an advert out on Instagram, and then that's come into Google Analytics. You know where it's come from.
You do have to set that up. If it's outside of a Google product, you will have to set up sort of custom tracking for that. But Google does have, I think it has a little tool that you can use to set up UTM parameter tracking. So it's a little bit more beyond the basic things, but yeah, it's definitely doable.
Some advanced stuff going on there. Any other questions? Do you all feel like you're going to be data ninjas? Look, one thing I should say right at the beginning is that we didn't want this presentation to be click on this, then click on that, then click on that. That'd be boring as batshit. So what we're going to do is, obviously Mandy's shown you 2 or 3 reports that you can just dive into. When I send out the handouts, we'll just show you the file path of how to get to it. I mean, most of you know because you're all web experts anyway. So, right.